What's going on, people? Welcome to the opposition preview. It's time to face Fulham as we head to Craven Cottage, and I'm joined by Elizabeth from the Fulhamish podcast. Make sure to check them out. I've done an opposition preview on their channel as well, so it'll be interesting to hear my perspective and also now a Fulham perspective of the game. As always, drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Elizabeth, thank you for coming on. Great to have you here. Before we get started about our game in particular, how has it been being a Fulham fan so far this season? From a neutral perspective, it seems like it's been amazing. Like, it's very exciting. Young players, experienced players. Marcus Silva doing well as well. I mean, he's been linked with a move to Tottenham, which I don't think will be happening. But you must be pleased, right?
Yeah, I feel like every year of stability in the Premier League, honestly, is a little bit of a pinch me moment.
Mm,
Even now, because for so long, this is the kind of life that we dreamt of. And this season, it's been so far, touch wood, the best yet. There have been obviously disappointing results along the way. We had an absolutely terrible 0-0 draw with Southampton at home at Christmas. That was pretty low. We've lost to Manchester United twice, which
wow.
is honestly embarrassing. Um, but having said that, it is a great time to be a Fulham fan in terms of results on the pitch. Especially at the moment, we're coming into this game in a really good run of form. We've just beaten Forest and Newcastle. We're through to the fifth round of the Cup, which is really exciting. So yeah, we're feeling good.
That's good. In terms of the recent results, of course you're going to have the odd results here and there with the Southamptons, etc. I think that happens to every team across the season. But what's been the main difference so far this season in comparison to previous seasons? Because there has been times where Fulham have been promoted and they've spent £100 million and it hasn't worked out. But is it the transfer business? Is it a combination of stuff? Because this season you've been comfortable. You haven't had those problems.
For me, it literally all comes down to Marco Silva, our manager, like one of the most underrated managers in the league, in my opinion. Um, he has transformed what this club is capable of, in my opinion. Like the way that we were battling with, even with a lot of transfer money, and then with a really good, impressive squad in 2021 under Scott Parker, and we weren't able to stay up at all. We weren't able to score goals, and it's just all changed because of that. And there has been some spark business in terms of in the transfer market, and we've brought in some really good players. But I actually feel like sometimes we've brought in like raw gems, and Marco Silva has been the key man in refining them. Looking at someone like Sasha Lukic, who when he came in, we watched his debut and every Fulham fan was quite unsure about how he was going to fit into this team, to now when he's one of the first names of the team sheet, runs the midfield wherever he goes. So yeah, our success is all down to Marco Silva, and we're delighted to have him.
So what's the ceiling then? I know it might be a bit, I don't know, some fans don't like talking about predicting what the future is for their clubs, but surely European sport must be the objective with where you're at right now.
I think well, there are two dreams this season, and really blue sky thinking. What I want most in the world. Firstly, I would love a proper cup run.
Same.
Um, we face Man United in the fifth round, which is not a place that we've done well in. And I don't know if you remember the infamous game a couple of years ago where they beat us 3-1 and we had Willian sent off, Mitrovic sent off and
Oh
banned
yeah,
for
yeah.
10 games. Like it was awful.
Mm.
So a cup run, like I would sacrifice quite a lot of league form, honestly, for a semi-final, a cup final.
Wow.
Um, but having said that, if that doesn't work out, like we always lose at Manchester United, there's no reason we won't again, then Europe is the goal. And any Fulham fan would snap your hand off for a Conference League spot at this point.
Yeah, it feels the same at Palace. Of course, you lot have experienced being Fulham fans, European run, but we haven't. And but a cup run, I think for both clubs, it makes a lot of sense because it just gives you a bit of hope. Look, regardless of the result on Saturday, we still got Millwall to look forward to,
Yeah.
and if you beat Millwall, then you're always going to have the next cup game to look forward to. So it kind of keeps your season going. when you're at the cup and then you lose a game and then you're looking at the league table and let's say you lose 2, 3 games, you're like, what now? What are we playing for? You don't want to end up halfway through the season. Well, we've gone past halfway, but towards the later stage of the season saying,
Mm,
is there nothing to play for? But I think Fulham's in a very good position. I think you're in a
yeah.
position to have a cup run and as well as a European spot challenge because right now you're in and around the conversations. But in terms of Marco Silva, do you see him ever leaving Fulham this summer? Or I'm asking, I
Uh,
guess you probably hate these questions, but the reason why I'm asking is because we had a similar problem with Glasner. It was weird because after a few months, Bayern Munich actually approached us, but we kind of turned it down. We said he's under contract here. Are you
mm.
in any fear of that? Because you are an ambitious football club, so I think you do back him. But
Yeah, he's tied down to a contract. But obviously, if he wanted to leave, I think he would, and he was bought out, he would go. The thing that I think, and this is a comfort, and maybe I'm just holding on to this as a dream, is I'm not actually quite sure where's going to open up for him. I don't think Manchester United will go for him. I think Spurs feels like the obvious option, but I think they've done the up and coming project manager with Postecoglou, and I don't think they'd go for someone like Silva. And I think if they were going to go for someone like Silva, they would go for Iraola from Bournemouth. So I would just be really hopeful that Spurs wouldn't swoop for him. I do think he still has slightly got a little bit of prejudice against him because of what happened at Everton,
yeah,
and Watford and Hull. So I think that does play in our favour slightly, but equally we know he's a very ambitious manager. And like I can say this now, obviously we'll see how I feel if it comes. If he did go to a top six side, I would wish him the best, and
mm,
hope that he wins thousands of trophies with them. But I'm
mm.
thinking, I'm feeling pretty confident we'll be able to hold on to him this summer.
Yeah, and I think clubs like us, it would be nice. It would be nice to hold on to managers. I think even
Hmm.
Bournemouth with Areola, he's been linked to Real Madrid and other types of jobs. Is crazy because you know he's managing Bournemouth, which is not the biggest club out there, and he's
Hmm.
still being linked to a move away. But the league has been very competitive this year because of these quality managers managing clubs like Glasner. I think. I don't know what your opinion is on Glasner, but I do rate him, and I think he's a manager, of course, that has won in previous places as well, which his CV speaks for himself. And it's great to have him at the football club. I can't really see us having any other manager that could be better for us at this current moment of time rather than Glasner. So yeah, let's see. Hopefully for you lot's sake that he does end up staying. But I think he will. I think he will as well because you're going in the right direction. But just quickly, your thoughts on Palace so far this season from a neutral perspective. I assume you don't watch Palace week in week out. I don't expect you to. But what have you made of Palace? From what you've
Not
seen.
week, not week in, week out, but obviously I
Yeah.
have caught quite a few games. Um, Feels like you're sometimes a bit hot and cold. We spoke about how you're a lot better away from home than you are at
Yeah.
home, which does worry me. Obviously, this being a game at the cottage this weekend. Um, I saw your win against Brighton, the 3-1 at the Amex. Was it before Christmas?
No, yeah, before, yeah, actually, yeah, before
Yeah,
Christmas.
before Christmas. And that really stuck in my memory because I thought you were so impressive that day, the fluidity with which you played. Um, and the threat on the counter was really worrying. And if you show up and play like that this weekend, I think Fulham have got a problem on their hands.
Mm,
But equally, I saw the reverse fixture, and I know the squad was decimated by injuries that day, but Palace were incredibly poor that day.
yeah.
Um, so and I know you've just lost to Everton at home, and I know Everton are better than they once were, but that's not, a great result.
Mm.
All that kind of thing. So mixed bag. Are you in 12th place at the moment?
It sounds like Palace, yeah. I
Yeah.
haven't checked there, but it sounds like Palace. That's where exactly. That's our spot. I think the Premier League should just give it
Mhm.
to us every season, even before it starts.
Yeah, we actually, this is a little bit of a tangent, but in my office, we've got a Premier League sweepstake for 12th place because winner's a bit boring. And the guy who got Palace at the beginning was like, I've got this
Yeah,
locked
this is
in.
amazing. Yeah, he's won. He's already won. You might as well give him the award. Because yeah,
Yeah.
that's Palace's spot. Really,
Mhm.
and not in a bad way, but when we look at clubs like yourselves and the Bournemouths and the Brightons, of course, you lot haven't recently played European football, but it's actually impacted our home atmosphere, in my opinion, because the home
Mm,
atmosphere it's not as good as it used to be, and I think that's because the fans are like, well, we're not going down, but we're also not fighting for European spots. So what now? So it's kind of it hasn't really helped us. But yeah, it is a joke that Palace fans say as well, like, oh, we're 12th, we're back home. That's what it feels
mm.
like right now. In terms of personnel, then, who should we watch out for those who don't watch Fulham?
So our left-hand side is really where we're going to be creating problems for you guys. It will be Anthony Robinson, who's our best player, such a speedy winger, such good attacking intent on the overlap with Alex Iwobi in front of him. Alex Iwobi has got a goal and a few in him as well, and that's where we're really dangerous. But equally, across the front line, we've been relatively solid this season. Harry Wilson, who scored in the reverse fixture, is out at the moment with a medium-term injury. But Raul Jimenez and Rodrigo Muniz, between them, have the goals of a Premier League striker, which
Mm,
is a difficult one because a lot of Fulham fans would like us to buy another striker. But between them, it seems they're managing just fine. Do we want one man to be able to achieve that? Possibly, but it's not a luxury we've got at the moment. And then behind them, Emil Smith Rowe has been a player that was our club record signing, blew a little bit hot and cold for us. Um, but in the last few games, he's definitely turned it on a little bit more, been a lot more impressive. He scored, and that will add to his confidence, which will mean that he'll be able to be more dangerous on Saturday.
mm. What about Joachim Andersen? I've seen a few tweets here and there from Fulham fans, so I'm not exactly too sure. It would be great to have your perspective on him. But from a Palace perspective, I might have been in a minority, but I was actually happy when we sold him for the price tag because I don't think he fits a back three system, even though he's not a bad
Mhm.
player. But Maxence Lacroix, who was signed for £14 million, I think he's up there as a contender for player of the season. So I think he's been great for us. His replacement, but from a perspective, he's an experienced player, a player that you lot knew about beforehand, of course. Have you been happy with him?
Yeah, it's Anderson is such a tricky one. I was so delighted when he re-signed and when he came back. And the first few games, he was electric. He was amazing. And then he got sent off against Villa, and then he came back and was still amazing, and provided like a rock solid presence in the back line. And
Mm,
also those diagonal passes to get forward were
yeah.
amazing. I love to watch those. Then he got injured end of November, and since he came back, he's not been the player that he was. And it's really disheartening. And we're not quite sure why. And it's not been bad enough that he's been making loads of mistakes. And it's not been bad enough that he's needed to be dropped. But we've got a really competent backline. And
Mm.
he sometimes feels a little bit like the missing piece out of place in that. And there have been quite a lot of calls by the fan base to play Issa Diop, who's our backup in that position, instead of him. Um, but as far as I'm concerned, he had a really good game on Saturday, I thought, against Nottingham Forest, and I want to still see his name on the team sheet.
Out of curiosity, what is it that's missing? Is it just a combination of stuff? Is it pace? Is it his defending? Is it his passing? Or is it just everything that hasn't been quite the same?
It's pace and his but he's never really been super pacey. It's
Yeah,
more his
exactly. Yeah.
awareness of the game that I find
Okay.
is slightly lacking, and it's meant that he's not been able to compensate for his lack of pace. He had in the past been really good at getting into those right positions, but he's just slightly been down on that, and our other defenders have had to mop up a few mistakes here and there.
Okay. Okay. Sounds like Anderson, especially his pace. His pace hasn't really been there, but his
Mhm,
awareness, I guess it depends. He didn't really, well, he did have one or two moments, but I think throughout his Palace career, he kind of grew as a player. But it happens, I guess. Players go out of form and then they
mhm.
just need to play out of it. And from a Palace side of things, who is it the player that you might fear the most? Is it the likes of John Philippe Mateta? I know you mentioned him in our preview, but him and Joachim Andersen, for example, that should be a good battle because he's a player that's on form versus a defender who hasn't been at the same levels as you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, Mateta always seems to pop up with a goal. So I really do fear him. Like he's probably the headline name. But I would actually love to hear about Eze because in times gone by, or not times gone by, but last year I remember year before, like Eze being the most dangerous Palace player. But I feel like
Mm.
this season I haven't heard quite so much about him. So I was wondering, are you?
Yeah, he hasn't been the same. In fact, there was a report from the Athletic as well, which came out, and it's just it's weird to describe because some people say it's a combination of things. With left wing back Tyreek Mitchell not being as effective going forward, it's been a bit easier for teams to defend
Mm,
against him because they haven't got that wide threat. And at times he's been his own enemy because simple passes, simple decision making, he just didn't make it. And Adam Walton maybe not being in midfield and Eze being the main creative player has kind of made all the focus on Eze. So it's like if you stop Eze, then you kind of stop Palace's creativity. So I think a combination of stuff hasn't helped him. But as of recently, his goals and assists have been better. But in terms of performances, even when he came off the bench against Everton, he was solid. He was actually solid. So yeah, he's improving, but the overall season, it feels like he's missing Elise. That's what it feels like
yeah,
right now. Because with Elise, you had both of them just bouncing off each other. You know, Elise would have the ball, try to create chances. You would have Eze, but now it just felt like you have Eze. Ismail Sarr, who's playing down the right hand side. He's not that creative number 10. He's a player that runs in behind. So it's pretty much that duties fell on Eze with Wharton being out of the side. But with Wharton coming back, and he's had a few injury problems as well, to be fair to him, which he's played through.
mm,
I think the second, well, towards the end of the season now, he has to kind of push for it because no one actually bid for Eze in the summer, and that shocked the club. And I guess for you to be proven to be a top six player, you have to be a bit more consistent. It's not just about the GA, your overall performance. So yeah, he hasn't been that great. But saying that, I wouldn't mind if he turns up now, scores a goal on Saturday, because he has been getting goals and assists.
mm,
That's the funny thing as of recently.
mm.
So yeah, I mean, he's one to look forward to. Adam Walton, I think Fulham should try to focus on him if he starts because I do think he's a very good player. But it's a pretty like you got good players. We've got a few decent players. I think it should be a good game on paper. Let's get your score prediction then. How do you see this one going?
I feel like this game is always a draw at Craven Cottage. So I'm not gonna veer away from that, even though I hope, especially considering Fulham's recent run of form, it might be a win. But I'm gonna go 1-1.
Hmm. I'm going to go for 2-0 Palace because I don't want to go against the trend of 2
Hmm.
nils away from home. Away from home in our last 4 to 5 games, I think it's all been 2-0. So I'm going to stick with 2-0 and let's see. It's not going to be easy though. It's not going to be easy. The only thing that I've got my hopes on is just that away form. That's pretty much it. If we play like we did against Everton, we're getting nothing out of the game. Forget about a
Hmm.
draw. But then I'll take a draw. 100% I'll take a draw because I think you're quality side and you're playing at home as well. So it shouldn't be easy. But let us know your score predictions in the comment section down below, as well as dropping a like and subscribing if you have enjoyed the content. Make sure to check out Fulhamish. The link will be in the description down below. Thank you to Elizabeth and every single one of you that's watched this. And until next time, up the Palace.